All navies are powerful, and a UN navy without power is more useless than a paper raincoat or a chocolate teapot. But some navies make the others look like little more than a bunch of disorganized kids stumbling around without a plan. These are the 20 most powerful navies in the world. But before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Now, let's get started. Number 20. United States Navy. Normally, in a list like this, we would count backwards to build suspense and make you wonder who takes the top spot. But to be honest, it's not hard to figure out who's at the top. It's the United States, and this can be easily proven. It's true that the US doesn't have the oldest naval power, as they weren't an officially formed country when the first concepts of naval warfare emerged. But as soon as they had the capability to build their own ships, well, they did, and they did so frequently. Currently, or at least in the last official count, the U.S. Navy consists of approximately 350,000 naval personnel and around 500 ships. That might sound like a lot, but when you understand the power of each of these vessels and what they are capable of, it becomes clear that it's more than enough to carry out any mission, and then some. Their fleet includes 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, 9 amphibious assault ships, 22 guided missile cruisers, 70 destroyers, 21 littoral combat ships, and over 70 nuclear submarines, along with numerous patrol boats, landing ships, and auxiliary vessels. Focusing just on the aircraft carriers, these are the ships that would be sent into war zones to establish dominance, while launching long-range strikes, either through the missiles they carry or the jets that can attack from great distances and then return to the carriers to refuel. It's no exaggeration to say that the US has the largest, best, and most powerful aircraft carriers in the world. They are in a class of their own. Furthermore, due to how the US invests its military budget, they are always seeking new ways to enhance the ships, onboard equipment, defense systems, and much more. They have even begun incorporating laser weapons on some vessels, capable of destroying incoming missile attacks before they hit their targets. The US Navy is so powerful that it's said that just one aircraft carrier entering a war zone would be enough to change the course of the conflict. Now imagine an entire fleet arriving at the doorstep of an enemy nation. It would be a really bad day for them. Number 19. People's Liberation Army Navy. Now that I've finished my trip through fantasy land, let's return to reality and talk about the actual forces China possesses on the naval side. Or more precisely, what the People's Liberation Army Navy has to offer. Yes, that's the official designation they use. And what might surprise you is that, in total ship count, China's Navy technically has more ships than the United States Navy. At least, the last time it was counted, they had around 750 ships at their disposal. This might leave you scratching your head since we've talked so much about the US and their forces for so long. But how does this work if the People's Liberation Army Navy has more units? Well, like anything, there are levels of capability that need to be considered in something like this. And while China has expanded their naval ranks significantly in recent years, when you look at what they really have, it doesn't seem all that impressive. Their fleet consists of 3 aircraft carriers, 2 amphibious assault ships, 51 destroyers, 50 frigates, 71 corvettes, and 80 submarines. Now, yes, this means they have a considerable force, but still not as strong as the United States. In addition, they have about 300,000 people operating all these ships, while the United States has 500,000. And American planes, launched from many more aircraft carriers, have much greater capability than Chinese planes. That said, the Chinese are still an intimidating force in their region, as the people of Taiwan can confirm. And they continue to expand their naval ranks. So, we can only hope that a naval battle between China and the United States isn't in our near future, because if it happens, it probably won't end well for anyone. Number 18. The Russian Navy. Russia is another nation that's complicated to comment on, because we all know they've been using their military strength recently due to the war in Ukraine. This conflict has lasted far too long, and many are wondering when, or even if, it will ever end. But when we focus on the Navy, we must admit, the Russians know what they're doing when it comes to naval power. The Russian Navy has about 160,000 military personnel and a fleet of around 360 ships. This fleet consists of 1 aircraft carrier, 5 cruisers, 12 destroyers, 11 frigates, 81 corvettes, and about 68 submarines. Now, you start to notice the difference between nations and how many ships each has. In Russia's case, their biggest strength is the fact that they don't exactly live in the most hospitable places on Earth. As a result, they focused on ensuring their naval vessels are not only powerful, but also highly resilient, capable of navigating regions like the Arctic Circle without issues. Russian submarines, in particular, excel at this kind of mission. Additionally, even though Russia might not be the most technologically advanced country in the world, they put a lot of effort into their naval force. Russia knows that at any moment they could get involved in a conflict, especially if they're the ones to initiate it, and therefore understands that they need to be as prepared as possible. Their ships and fleet prove this. Even though they may not have the largest numbers, they're ready to fight with everything they have and try to hold out as much as possible against their enemies. And as the Russians have shown throughout history, they are more than capable of pressuring any opponent until there's no one left to keep fighting. Number 17. The Indonesian Navy. It may come as a surprise to many that Indonesia has the fourth best navy in the world. After all, you don't hear much about Indonesia getting involved in conflicts in modern times. Yes, they've been invaded by different peoples throughout history, but they're not known for starting wars or needing to defend themselves frequently. One of the reasons for this is that they're smart enough to understand that the Navy is the best form of defense, especially since they are an archipelago. In this scenario, an army or an air force wouldn't be as effective in a large-scale conflict. But by maintaining a wide and well-distributed navy, capable of covering their entire chain of islands and surrounding waters, it proves to be highly effective. The Indonesian Navy has about 75,000 naval personnel and a fleet of over 243 ships. That means they are prepared to defend themselves, and I wouldn't want to be the one to test just how ready they really are. Number 16. The Republic of Korea. The next two countries on the list are unique because of their history. Starting with the Republic of Korea Navy, just to be clear, we're talking about South Korea, which should be obvious since it's called a republic, while North Korea is an absolute dictatorship. Although it's seen as a cultural hub with games and music, South Korea also knows how to defend itself and protect its borders. This is mainly due to the fact that they know exactly what could happen if they're not prepared, given the presence of their northern neighbors and those who occasionally support them. The South Korean Navy has around 70,000 active personnel and a fleet of about 150 ships. This includes 70 aircraft, including helicopters and other models. The Navy is known for its versatility. The fleet includes 2 helicopter carriers, 12 destroyers, 12 frigates, and more. It's a fairly robust fleet for a country the size of South Korea. But again, this reflects their mentality, to be prepared for anything if a new war arises. The Korean War in the 1950s was devastating. And, however you look at it, the South Korean people don't want that to happen again. That's why, in addition to equipping their ships with advanced technology, the military is also well-trained, capable of acting both at sea and on land without difficulty. When you fear the worst, you tend to prepare to be the best when it's time to retaliate. Number 15. Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. Here's an entry that's quite easy to comment on, and not for the reason you might think. Some of you may remember from world history classes where it was specifically stated that, after the events of World War II, Japan would renounce all of its active military forces. This later became known as Article 4 of their constitution. And, for the record, many people in Japan agree with not having any kind of active military forces, as they prefer to be a pacifist nation, focused on developing through technology rather than the use of weapons. However, as the wise often say, it's always good to have a contingency plan, just in case. And that's where the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force comes in. It was created strictly for defensive purposes, but it still manages to sustain itself. The Japanese Navy has about 51,000 active personnel and a fleet of 150 or more ships. It may not be the most powerful force in the world, but that's not its intention. As mentioned, its main goal is to be a purely defensive force, but if needed, they will strike back. As, according to a decision by the Japanese Supreme Court, the people have the right to defend themselves, and they also have powerful allies who would likely come to their aid. That's something we should all value. Number 14. The Indian Navy. Being one of the largest countries in the world, with one of the most populous populations on the planet, it's no surprise that the Indian Navy holds a strong position on this list. That said, it wouldn't have gotten this far without undergoing a major overhaul to ensure its naval strength was up to par. As a result, instead of building its own fleet from scratch, India opted to purchase vessels from other countries to strengthen its numbers. It may not be the approach used by other nations, but it has worked for them. The Indian Navy has about 68,000 active personnel and a fleet of approximately 300 ships. Considering the country has an extensive coastline, which opens up the possibility of attacks from various points, it's essential to maintain such a naval force to protect its borders, something they likely do very well. Number 13. The French Navy. If we're going to talk about some of the oldest and most respected navies in history, the French Navy certainly has to be mentioned. Throughout many periods, it was one of the great forces at sea and knows exactly how to fight. Thanks to its long experience, the French understand that they need a broad and diversified force, consisting of various types of vessels, to deal with potential threats from European neighbors and other dangers. Their fleet includes 1 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 3 helicopter carriers, 11 destroyers, 11 frigates, and 10 nuclear submarines. In total, the French Navy has over 180 ships and around 37,000 personnel to operate them. This is another example of a force that, even though not the largest in the world, knows how to use its resources well. And that is what matters most. Given France's history, it is highly unlikely that the country would be responsible for starting a war that would mobilize several nations against it. Number 12. The Royal Navy. If you want to talk about one of the oldest navies in the world, you don't need to look further than the United Kingdom and its Royal Navy. At one point in history, the British naval force was one of the most terrifying things on the planet, and that's why the British Empire was so vast and its fleets almost unstoppable. Although the empire has receded quite a bit, which, let's be honest, was probably for the best, that doesn't mean they don't have a fleet capable of defending and combating evil. The Royal Navy has about 34,000 active military personnel and a fleet of around 90 ships, as well as operating approximately 175 aircraft, some of which were sold by the United States to ensure they had the best available. The fleet includes 2 aircraft carriers, 6 destroyers, 13 frigates, and 11 nuclear-powered submarines. Therefore, if needed, the Royal Navy can reach anywhere in the world, whether by call or necessity, and they have the experience to achieve victory both on the surface and underwater. So, don't underestimate the British. You might end up regretting it. Number 11. The Turkish Navy. Here's another interesting surprise to wrap up the top 10. If you look at a world map, you'll notice that Turkey doesn't border oceans. Instead, it is located between 2 seas, the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Given this, you wouldn't expect Turkey to have such a large navy, right? In fact, it's quite the opposite. These seas, although not oceans, have been the site of many battles throughout history. And because they are on opposite sides of Turkey, this exposes it to enemies of various types, which means they need a fleet capable of dealing with any threat. Its fleet consists of an amphibious assault ship, 5 amphibious assault vessels, 16 frigates, 10 corvettes, 11 mine warfare ships, 35 patrol vessels, and 12 submarines. Like France or the United Kingdom, Turkey is also known for its naval strength. Additionally, it's smart enough to recognize the need to modernize its ships, ensuring they stand a real chance against forces with more resources. No matter the size of your aquatic battlefield, you'll need ships to defend yourself when the time comes. Number 10. The Italian Navy. Italy has always been a constant focal point of wars and conflicts throughout history, including both world wars. Because of this, they know how to handle a navy and cause trouble. Currently, the Italian Navy has around 31,000 people under its command and possesses ships of all types, ready to thwart any threat that enters its area of operation. In fact, this is one of the greatest strengths of the Italian Navy. It is constantly evolving, making it difficult for enemies to predict which ships they will face or even how to counter them. Today, they have a wide variety of vessels and a diverse fleet of auxiliary ships. Number 9. The Brazilian Navy. Here's another navy that doesn't often get much global attention, but if you live in South America, you surely know the power of the Brazilian Navy. That's because this navy was crucial in securing Brazil's independence by fighting against Portugal, and it remains strong to this day. Since then, it has expanded, using connections with other countries to acquire ships and aircraft that strengthen its forces. Additionally, they've used other ships to create things like the Merchant Navy, helping to grow the economy. According to the most recent count, they have over 100 vessels available, including everything from an aircraft carrier to 12 river auxiliary ships. Number 7. The Royal Thai Navy. Like other navies we've mentioned, we don't have an exact count of what the modern Royal Thai Navy has in its fleet, but we know that it has around 130 vessels, including missile-equipped frigates with surface-to-surface missiles, fast attack craft armed with similar missiles, large coastal patrol ships, minesweepers, mine layers, landing ships, and much more. And although they don't have the best fleet in the world, they definitely need one, considering the countries around them. There are several nearby nations with strong enough fleets to confront them if the opportunity arises. As already mentioned, no one wants to see these navies going into conflict. But regardless of the number of ships, their goal is simply to protect their territory and the waters that surround it. Number 6. The German Navy. The German Navy used to be one of the most feared in the world, mainly because of its killer ships known as U-boat submarines. These machines were the #1 enemy at sea during World War II. After the defeat in the war and the formation of NATO, Germany became a key player in the alliance, likely as a way to compensate for what happened in the past. In total, there are about 65 commissioned ships in the German Navy. They formed alliances with other nations, not only to build vessels, but also to provide them to other countries or NATO itself, if necessary. Number 5. The Spanish Navy. Here we have another country that once had one of the most feared and influential naval fleets in world history. During the age of exploration, the Spanish Armada was synonymous with global power. In the 15th and 16th centuries, Spain ruled the oceans with its powerful galleons, crossing the Atlantic to conquer lands, plunder riches, and expand the Spanish Empire to all corners of the world. South America, Central America, the Caribbean, the Philippines, all these places felt the might of the Spanish Navy in its golden age. The power was so great that Spain became the largest naval empire in Europe, rivaling only Portugal and, later, England. But as many empires learn the hard way, success often leads to arrogance. The disastrous defeat of the famous Spanish Armada in 1588 against England marked the beginning of Spain's naval decline. While they remained relevant in the following centuries, they lost important wars, saw their naval influence diminish, and suffered from internal political instability. Still, the Spanish Navy never ceased to exist. It only changed its role over time. In modern times, Spain rebuilt its navy with a focus on versatility, modernization, and international integration. By 2018, the Armada had approximately 138 vessels, including warships, patrol boats, submarines, auxiliary ships, and amphibious assault ships. The main base of the Spanish Navy is located in Rota, a strategic point in the southwest of the country that also serves as a joint base with the United States, thanks to mutual defense agreements. Although no longer a naval superpower, the Spanish continue to invest in significant advancements in naval technology. One of the greatest prides of the modern Navy is the light aircraft carrier Juan Carlos I, which combines amphibious assault capabilities with air operations. The vessel is considered one of the most versatile in Europe and can carry helicopters, Harrier jets, and landing troops. In addition, Spain has also developed the highly advanced Álvaro de Bazán class frigates with Aegis systems, defense technology also used by the US. Interestingly, although few know it, the Spanish were pioneers in the invention and use of submarines. The first fully functional military submarine was created by a Spanish engineer named Isaac Peral in 1888. The Peral submarine was ahead of its time, being electric, armed with torpedoes, and capable of submerged navigation. Although the project was discontinued at the time due to political issues, it is considered the precursor to modern submarines. Today, the Spanish Navy operates the Galerna-class submarines and is developing the S-80+ class, one of the most modern in Europe, with great autonomy and the ability to operate for long periods without needing to surface. Another point of highlight is international cooperation. The Spanish Navy actively participates in NATO, European Union, and UN missions, playing important roles in maritime patrols, anti-piracy operations, security in strategic straits, and humanitarian rescues in the Mediterranean Sea. Additionally, it regularly conducts joint training with the navies of the United States, France, Italy, and the United Kingdom. Today, the Spanish Navy remains a modern, trained, and well-equipped force that protects the country's maritime interests while keeping alive a naval tradition that began over 5 centuries ago. While the days of global conquest have passed, the Spanish Navy still sails with pride, being one of the leading navies in Europe in terms of innovation and readiness. Number 4. The Bangladesh Navy. Not surprisingly, the Bangladesh Navy is defined by the government itself as a fleet of ships aimed at protecting its economy and military bases, both within the country and around the world. However, it also has another important role. It was designed to assist in natural disaster scenarios. For this reason, they are known for their humanitarian efforts around the world when needed. In November 2020, they had 5 guided missile frigates, 2 patrol frigates, 6 corvettes, 38 smaller surface combat vessels of various types, and 30 auxiliary ships. In addition, they have 2 submarines in their fleet. And given the prestige and goodwill they have earned over the years, it is no surprise that they collaborate with the United Nations in several peacekeeping missions. Number 3. The Egyptian Navy. Given Egypt's influence throughout history, its navy has had to play many roles over the centuries. After all, the country had the Nile River, which allowed ships to reach parts of Africa, and various seas to the north that facilitated access to Europe. Fast forward to today, and Egypt has the largest naval fleet in the Middle East and Africa. But ironically, despite this naval power, much of its fleet was not built in Egypt, but rather by allies such as the United States, China, and Russia. The Egyptian Navy was established in 1820 to protect the country's maritime interests in the Mediterranean and Red Seas. It consists of modern vessels and a highly skilled personnel, playing a crucial role in national defense and maritime security. Its responsibilities include the protection of shipping routes, conducting anti-piracy operations, and supporting international peacekeeping missions. With a history rooted in ancient civilizations connected to navigation, its naval strength continues to evolve and adapt to contemporary challenges and advancements. Number 2. The Hellenic Navy. For those unfamiliar with the term, the Hellenic Navy is the official name of the Greek Navy. Although Greece is no longer an imperial power as it was in ancient times, the country still maintains a significant and respectable maritime presence. The Greeks were historically masters of the seas. During ancient times, they used their naval fleet for a variety of purposes, such as trade, expansion, and, most importantly, defense against powerful enemies like the Persian Empire. It was thanks to their naval strength that they won iconic battles, such as the Battle of Salamis, where the Greek fleet outnumbered the Persian armada and secured the survival of Western civilization. Today, despite facing economic and political difficulties, Greece still maintains a navy with about 120 warships and auxiliary vessels, a force not to be underestimated. Among these ships are the Hydra-class frigates, modern Panikoulis-class submarines, based on the German Type 214 design, corvettes, fast attack craft, patrol vessels, logistics support ships, and even electronic warfare vessels. The versatility of the fleet allows Greece to not only defend its territory, but also participate in international operations under the flag of NATO or the European Union. The Hellenic Navy has its roots in the ancient Greek maritime tradition, and its modern form was officially established in 1828, shortly after the country's independence from the Ottoman Empire. Since then, it has become a modern and professional naval force with solid infrastructure, a rigorous naval academy, and a highly trained workforce, an essential part of Greece's military strength. The Navy's main mission is to protect Greek maritime interests, particularly in the Aegean Sea, where territorial disputes with Turkey remain a permanent source of tension. The Aegean Sea, with its hundreds of islands, is one of the most militarily sensitive areas in Europe. Greece considers it vital to maintain naval superiority in this territory, especially because many of the Greek islands are very close to the Turkish coast. The Hellenic Navy conducts regular patrols, naval exercises, and war simulations to ensure it is always ready for a potential escalation of conflict. These exercises are done not only independently, but also in partnership with the navies of allied countries, reinforcing Greece's position as a pillar of stability in the Eastern Mediterranean. The Greek Navy also continuously invests in technological modernization. Recently, efforts have been made to acquire state-of-the-art new frigates, improve radar and anti-missile defense systems, and integrate naval drones for coastal surveillance and reconnaissance. In addition, Greece has strengthened ties with countries like France, Israel, and the US to exchange technologies, train personnel, and ensure access to the best naval practices in the world. A recent example was the contract with France for the acquisition of highly modern Frégate de Défense et d'Intervention FDY, equipped with the most advanced combat systems. The Hellenic Navy is also actively involved in humanitarian operations and refugee rescue, which is highly relevant considering the migration crisis affecting the Mediterranean in recent years. Greek ships often rescue endangered vessels, providing humanitarian aid and demonstrating that, beyond force, there is a commitment to human and international values. Finally, we cannot forget that, despite a relatively modest military budget, this Navy still stands out for its discipline, efficiency, and naval knowledge accumulated over centuries. The Greek maritime legacy is something that inspires respect, and the men and women who make up the Hellenic Navy today keep this heritage alive. With modern ships, strong strategic alliances, and a deep knowledge of their region, Greece remains a relevant and strategic naval force in one of the most contested seas on the planet. Number 1. The Swedish Navy. Believe it or not, the Swedish Navy is one of the oldest active navies in the world, and it just celebrated 500 years of service in 2022. Although it has gone through many advancements over the years, its current structure includes 7 corvettes, 9 countermeasure ships, 5 diesel submarines, 14 patrol vessels, 165 gunboats, and a series of other auxiliary ships. So yes, they may not have the largest fleet in the world, but that doesn't mean they're not making an effort. On the contrary, they are trying to increase their numbers even further while preparing for a possible conflict. And to be frank, considering the instability in various regions of the world, it's not a bad idea to prepare. In the end, it's safer to prevent than to remedy. That's it for the world of naval forces and the various nations that dominate the waters with their strength. Were you surprised by some of the countries that made the list and their capabilities at sea? Or do you think another nation should have appeared based on what they offer? Thank you so much for watching the video. If you enjoyed our content, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Don't forget to check out other interesting content appearing on your screen right now, and I'll see you in the next video. See you next time.